Okay, so we're here to talk about this tour with Bullet for My Valentine, which is reaching also Spain at the end of February. All right, so I want to start talking about early 2000s because well, this is like the anniversary of Ascendancy, and it was released in 2005. But the year before, two also very important albums came out, which is Leviathan for Mastodon and Ashes of the Wake for Lamb of God. Those two bands are also touring for those albums, right? And when those albums came out, and yours, the Ascendancy, came out as well, it was called like the new wave of American metal, right? What are your thoughts about that era and that label or tag that was put on onto metal, the modern metal?
I guess that new wave of America thing, I kind of felt like that started like a little bit before we came out. I remember when I first heard that term was kind of maybe a little bit like maybe '03 ish. Because I remember it was like when like Shadows Fall was coming out, Kill Switch, the Live or Just Breathing came out. That stuff was that was kind of like at least over here, that's when we started to hear that stuff come out when kind of like
Yeah.
the tail end of new metal and kind of like this new stuff started coming out that was a little bit more of the old school kind of thrash metal, old school heavy metal kind of infused music. It was cool. We were stoked. At least I was stoked. Growing up, no one really listened to the stuff I listened to. I was all guitar playing and guitar solos and all that stuff. So when some of these newer bands started coming out that had like all that kind of influence and stuff, it was like definitely I was stoked to hear like the riffs again, the metalness, the musicianship was higher in the music. So that was definitely cool, and it definitely kind of helped carry the wave, with when we came out, that kind of sound was becoming popular again, and that so when Ascendancy came out, people were ready and like ready and uh stoked for that music because at least in the mainstream, that kind of heavy music wasn't hadn't been hadn't been heard of or really that popular in a long time. So definitely kind of reignited the scene in a cool way, and we were happy to be a part of it. We didn't really ever no, it felt like we never really were in the new wave of American heavy metal stuff. In that scene, it felt like we were kind of like after it, and we were kind of being down in Florida, we kind of were a little uh a little away from it as far as what we were doing, and
Hmm.
a lot of the new wave of American heavy metal stuff kind of had that like a lot of the New England bands and some of that stuff. But it was all cool. It was definitely a fun time for the heavy metal scene of like this kind of this new thing kind of making a big resurgence in the in the I guess the a little bit of the mainstream focus.
Exactly. Yes. By that time, you were working with Jason Swikoff, who was on Embers on the debut album. But he will also work with you guys on Ascendancy. You were already on the band for Ascendancy. What do you remember of those times in the studio? Was his input that strong on the album? Did you work with him to arrange songs, or what do you remember to work with him?
Yeah, we that was like my first time. Well, besides the demo that we recorded before Ascendancy, that was kind of my first times in the studio, and obviously first time making a record. So it was kind of a you didn't really no experience, didn't really know what to expect or anything. You get kind of there doing it. And we had been working on stuff for Ascendancy for quite a while because after Ember, I joined the band, and then Ember came out. We really never toured much. We played some shows here and there, but we never did like any touring or anything. So we were just in Florida, and then every day we just kind of go in our rehearsal spot and practice and jam, and that's where a lot of the Ascendancy songs came about. Was just in our crappy hot warehouse in Florida, just kind of riffing out and jamming and putting song ideas together, and so we spent a lot of time, like over a year, just messing with song ideas and arrangements and rewriting stuff, and then when it came down to like, actually doing the record, we had a really good thing with Jason for that record. He had with this being like on Roadrunner and kind of like a big thing for us, and also his first big like major label record he's worked on. We both had a lot to prove and stuff. So we had a really good thing going on, and he brought a lot of good, cool input. He's a really great musician himself, really great with guitar playing, arrangements, vocals. Like he's just a really amazing, savant musically. So when we were in there doing pre-pro and working on the record, he just had a lot of cool things to throw our way to, what about try this or maybe change this or rearrange this, so it was just a lot of just kind of picking apart the songs and just kind of seeing what we could do. And, we had a lot of cool stuff going on, and, we felt like the record really came out, obviously, 20 years later, says a lot, but, we definitely, working with Jason definitely really brought, a lot out of the band, and, we had a really great working relationship.
Great. Actually, there is this story. I don't know if it is true. I don't know if you can confirm it. That you were doing a tour with Machine Head. This is before Ascendancy came out, but you were already playing some songs on that tour that later will be on the album. One of those songs is "Pull Harder on the String of Your Mother," right? I think this one of the song guys for Machine Head say, "Okay, that's an awesome song, but the chorus is terrible," right? And actually, the chorus was changed afterwards, and it came like this iconic chorus and song for Trivium. Is this story true? And if there are any other songs on Ascendancy that you play before the album came out that were different that the version on the album?
Well, when we did that tour with Machine Head, we basically we had that tour, and then right after that tour, we were going into the studio to start pre-production, and then eventually do the record with Jason. So that whole tour, we basically, I remember we had a notebook, and we made like 3 different set lists, and all it was just the songs that we were going to do, we were going to record for Ascendancy. So we went out on the tour. We didn't play anything from Ember to Inferno. We just played all these new songs that we had. And since we only had like a 30-minute set, it was like we had like, I think there was like 12 songs or something we had. So the tour, we just like had these different set lists. So every night we would go through the songs. If we wanted to, we basically like, since we were going right into the studio after after the tour, we wanted to be able to make sure all the songs were rehearsed as best as possible. So we just played them on the tour, was like basically our rehearsal time. So we just like rotated these set lists, and we had all the songs from Ascendancy in the set that we played. And a couple songs were a little different. Like obviously Pull Harder was a little different, I remember. I think Drown and Torn Asunder was a little different. Like a lot of the stuff was just maybe like the way the feels of the parts were with like the drums. Some parts like, Pull Harder, the middle section, like it was the same riff, but we went into kind of like a thrash drum part instead of like the kind of heavier breakdown vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of little things like that where we kind of like, we're like, oh, maybe we should try this feel instead of playing a fast part or something. So there wasn't too many besides Pull Harder. I can't remember if there was a lot of parts or songs that had like completely different sections. They were just kind of like the sections got like, when we got in the studio, we kind of refined them and kind of like changed them or kind of came up with something got a little more creative with it instead of just kind of playing like a straight part or something. It was kind of just kind of little details like that was kind of more of what we were going over. And then something like Dying in Your Arms was like, we kind of had like I guess a skeleton of what that song, like the original versions, like had the same like chord progressions and parts and stuff, but it had a completely different feel. So that one got like a major overhaul in the studio. But definitely that the chorus for Pull Harder was probably the biggest
Change, yeah.
the biggest change of like a part completely changing. And yeah, that part was true. The guy was, basically was like, yeah, the chorus is pretty shitty, and wasn't that good, I could admit that, it was kind of more of like one of those things where we had like this new song we're working on, and it was like kind of like a placeholder where it's like, I guess this is where the chorus is going to be, but it didn't really have like anything like solid yet. So it was kind of just like, I guess we'll just do this for the chorus for now. And, luckily someone was just, back in those days, people were pretty brutally honest to your face. So, it was kind of like, a lot of people might kind of be offended that someone would be like, oh, that part sucks nowadays. But, back then it was good. It was like you heard like the brutal truth instead of being like someone be like, oh, yeah, that was okay. And kind of watering it down. And then you're just kind of like, oh, maybe we'll keep it. But someone's like, yeah, that really sucks. So you're like, well, I guess we should do something better, and it definitely, got us to do something better. So, that's sometimes you need that just brutally honest truth, and something good comes out of it.
Totally, totally. And as we say, you on those times you were touring with Machine Head, but also with bands like Fear Factory, I think Ice Earth as well. Bands that were already or already had a history touring. Bands that were on the road for years and years, and it was like the first time for you guys. So, what did you learn from those bands, from their experience playing with them?
A lot of those early tours, I don't know, Fear Factory tour, Ice Earth. First tour we ever did was with God Forbid, and then we did another short tour with Il Nino.
Hmm.
So a lot of those early tours, because we were, just been signed to Roadrunner, and Ascendancy came out. We were on the label for like a little over a year or so. So the label just basically just put us on any tour they could get us on, just to get us some like show experience and kind of get our feet wet without having like a release or anything to promote yet. So we did a lot of like little tours. So a lot of these tours were like 2 weeks maybe. Like they were little short runs, like little tacked on to like added some like a. I know the Ice Earth.
Hmm.
They had done like a full U.S. tour, and then they did like I guess like added 2 weeks of shows at the end as like I don't know, just some extra shows or whatever. So we got on those as like the kind of like the end of the tour
Hmm.
kind of thing. So we did a lot of short things. So and being so new, we didn't want to like get in anyone's way. So we didn't really like. I guess we talked to people here and there, but we weren't. We weren't really like in the situation where we're going around like asking people a shitload of questions about stuff. But went out there, tried not to piss anyone off and get in the way, and just kind of like do what we were told, and kind of just kind of learning how the whole touring, how everything runs on tour with just like load ins and when to be there and, getting on and off stage on time and all that stuff.
And as you said before, you went from no touring at all for Ember to Inferno, from doing 100 shows for Ascendancy. So when the Ascendancy tour already finished, did you feel like you were already a proper musician, like a professional musician doing this? Did you feel that after 100 and 100 shows?
Oh, we definitely, we toured so much for Ascendancy. I think it was just kind of like one of those, you go from, you know, being at home and, you practicing in your warehouse every day, with the dreams of, going out on tour and doing all the stuff that you see all these other bands doing, and then start going out on tour, and then Ascendancy comes out and it like starts blowing up, and then we're on Ozfest and touring with all these bands that we looked up to and had their records, and it's just nonstop, just like tour after tour, and you're just doing things nonstop. That like after year and a half or whatever, you've played a million shows and barely been home, and it just kind of sometimes it's like you're just so busy, you just really don't get much much time to kind of stop and like kind of think about it. So I think we definitely got like playing that many shows, you definitely it definitely ups your playing. You get to play a certain amount of time every single day, so that definitely is a bonus and a plus. And playing as a band definitely gets you better. Playing with the same people, you kind of get that tightness and everything like that. So definitely being on the road definitely really sharpens your skills. So I think we all definitely improved on our musicianship, and and also just performing on stage and being a performer is definitely another big thing that you don't really get that experience until you're, on the stage. So it's like kind of, you can stand in front of your mirror at home in your bedroom and pretend like you're on stage in front of, a couple hundred people, couple thousand people or whatever. But it's like, until you get out on that stage and feel that energy and that adrenaline rush, it's like, you don't really get that experience until you're actually in the fire. So, we definitely learned a lot from that. And we just, always try to keep that going and keep that, even to today, just trying to keep that, youthful energy of just like being excited, what it was like, playing your first shows, going out and still being able to do it and playing bigger shows. And
Well, for us here in Europe, our first contact live with Trivium was at Download Festival 2005, right? and it's been talked a lot about that show, and the impressions were really good. Actually, people love that show. But before you play Download, were you scared of the reaction people would have overseas? Because of course you were big home, but this time it was playing outside, was playing UK.
we and I, we had no idea what to expect. We were just kind of like, oh, I guess we're going overseas. It was kind of, we had been touring in America for so long prior to that. We were just kind of used to being the new band. We'd play the show. We would have like your reaction. Some shows would be like, crowd would be, really killer and going off. And then sometimes you play a show, the crowd would be kind of just staring at you. They don't know who you are. So they just kind of like watching, kind of just taking it all in and not doing anything. So you kind of had all the different reactions. We'd be able to walk out in the crowd and just kind of hang out and stuff. No one would really know who you were. And, we went overseas. The first show was over in, the first part of the tour was in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had gotten there and it was, you kind of were just like, had the same mindset as the States, was just like, oh, just over here to play shows. No one's really going to know who we are yet or blah, blah, blah. First time being in a different country, people didn't know us back home. So why would anyone know us here, kind of thing. And I remember the first show we were at and getting off the bus to go into the venue and like having like a bunch of kids, like, running up, like, with Ascendancy booklets and CDs and stuff, or Kerrang or Metal Hammer magazines or whatever, asking for autographs on the CD, taking pictures. And I was like, oh, people know who we are or recognize me. That's different. So kind of like saw like the first show we played was just like crazy, just like people chanting we were backstage, and before we went out on stage, like crowd was chanting our name and people singing the songs. And it was like, whoa, this is totally different. At the end of the tour, we went back to the UK to do Download, and we were supposed to play the third or fourth stage or something like that. But the beginning of the tour, that first part of that UK tour, like all the shows were sold out. And originally it was supposed to have been the band, all three bands were supposed to rotate spots. So like the first show of the tour, we opened, and then the next show we should have been second, and then the third show we would have been third, and then repeat that. But after the first show, it was like it went so crazy, and then after our set, like most of the crowd like kind of took off or went to our merch table to meet us. That eventually, just the UK part of the tour like changed, and they're like, you guys should close every show. After that, the Download people hit us up about like, hey, we have an opening band dropped off the festival, and we have an opening. Do you guys want to go from the small stage? You guys want to open the main stage? So there was no expectations of what to expect or anything. And, we had showed up and playing first band on. It was early in the morning, it was, I think, the second day of the festival. So waiting for the gates to open and people to come in. You were standing on the stage with our guitars. It was cold as shit, kind of like a overcast day, felt like it was going to rain at any moment. And we were just waiting, and it was like, maybe like 15, 20 minutes before our set time. And, we were just kind of on the side of the stage at Download, and just big open empty field. And I was like, oh, I hope there's, going to be people here to see us play, and then you just kind of, we always described it as like a Braveheart moment, what you could see from the stage. It was kind of like this hill. Mm-hmm. And I guess the entrance to the festival was like you couldn't see the entrance on the other side of the hill. There was a ton of people on the other side of the hill. We just didn't know it because on the stage, it was all you just saw was just a field with a hill. And then before our set, you just saw this whole horde of people just running over the hill, and it was like, holy shit! Like you just look like one of those old, Braveheart of just like an army coming at you. And then in no time, it was like the whole area for the main stage was completely packed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was.
And short after that, Bullet for My Valentine came out, and they released a debut album. People love it. Do you remember the first time you heard a Bullet for My Valentine song? You were an instant fan. Did you like it?
Yeah, I remember. Obviously, like in the being, the UK being a place where we were taking off first. So we were always doing a lot of press and interviews and stuff in the UK with all the magazines and everything like that. So like they were obviously on the kind of the same trajectory as us with doing a lot of the same stuff. So whenever we were doing stuff in magazines, we'd always see their name. They were doing the same thing. We'd see their press photos and, you know, wearing Metallica shirts or Maiden shirts. We're like, oh, these guys are into the same stuff as us. And I remember, I think it was like the first thing I might have heard. I think it was like the Hand of Blood
Hmm.
was like the first thing that came out. And I remember being like, oh, these guys are like, seem like they're into the same stuff as us. So it was kind of cool to hear another new band coming out that had a lot of the same influences and came from like the same scene as us, I guess. Remember on a day off or something, going to an HMV music store,
Hmm.
and they had back when they actually released singles on like CDs that you could go buy. I remember the one of the first, I think it was the first single for the Poison came out, and it was the Suffocating Under Words of Sorrow. And I actually bought the CD single from the store, and I remember listening to it, and I really dug the song and really like that kind of old school kind of maideny kind of like gallop to the song, and they had guitar harmonies and all this stuff, and it was like, oh, cool. There's another band that's like doing this kind of stuff too. That's like new and upcoming. Like they came out basically the exact same time as us, so we've always had this kind of like connection. We've known each other for a long time. We just never toured together. So, we've always talked here and there over the years of like, hey, we should always do something together. And it just, for some reason, with scheduling and just what they're doing, what we're doing, just for some reason, just never kind of matched up. And then it finally did now, 20 years later. So it's cool. We've always just had that connection coming out at the same time, and also, coming out at the same time. We definitely have a lot of fans that got into both bands at that time that are fans of both bands. So us doing something together now, I think there's just a lot of excitement with, fans, coming to see two bands they really like, but then also we're both playing two records that were like, a lot of people probably we were like they're when they were a teenager, like the gateway band, like,
Hmm.
Ascendancy got him into heavy music, or the Poison got him into heavy music, or both records were like, that to them. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun to, play the record in full and kind of see everyone's excitement out in the crowd.
Well, Corey, just one last question to finish the interview. After Ascendancy, Trivium changed and evolved in every album. And the good thing is that you guys never look back. You never repeat an album, and you evolve from album to album, right? This Ascendancy anniversary tour is great because it gives the opportunity for people who weren't fans at that time to listen to those songs, and people who were fans at that time and were saw you there can relive this experience,
Yeah,
right? But will you take this tour like a one-time thing and something special, or would you like to do something similar in the future? I don't know, for Shogun or in Waves or any of your other albums.
definitely. Like we've seen over the years that a lot of bands doing like anniversary tours, like has been kind of like I guess a popular thing to do. Some bands have like done it like 10 years after a record came out or whatever. And we always
Hmm.
just kind of thought that, hey, if people still care after 20 years, that'll be like the time to, you know,
Yeah.
think about doing something and whatever. So, especially Ascendancy was like our first big thing that kind of like people heard of us. So that kind of made a big impact. So, we figured like Ascendancy was like a good record to do it on. There's some of our records probably like we wouldn't. We did like a little thing on our last UK tour where we did like a little. It was like the Shogun 15th anniversary, and we played like a couple extra songs from it. But Shogun's that record, I'm sure there'd be a lot of fans that would love for us to play that record from start to finish. But that record is just so musically demanding that I don't know if I could manage wanting to do a whole tour of playing just that record. I'd probably just be, mentally exhausted. But it's cool to do this record because it was so special of a record for us and the fans. We have a lot of records that'll be turning 20. Crusade turns 20 the year after, and then Shogun and stuff like that. But probably won't do like any. We'll be probably back into focusing on new music, but we'll definitely. There'll be some cool stuff for like anniversary, like, stuff coming out that people can collect and buy, but probably not like spending a year of touring for another record is not going to be something that's going to be popping up anytime soon. So this is kind of like our one time kind of thing for now. I know Bullet, they're, talking to them. I know they're in the same boat. It was like, once we get done doing this anniversary run together, they've been in the studio, some new tunes and stuff out, and kind of moving on to the next record. So, but it's going to be exciting. I think, playing a record like Ascendancy on tour and the energy of the crowd and stuff is definitely, we're definitely looking forward to kind of like channeling that, playing those songs and getting that energy from the fans and kind of channeling that into to new music and hopefully capture some of that intensity from the tour and project that back into a new record that people will be pumped on.
Great. Yeah. Good to hear. Right, Corey, thank you so much for your time and for the interview.
No
Hopefully,
problem. Thank you.
we will see you playing when you play Madrid in Spain at the end of February, and I'll meet you there. Okay?
Awesome. Sounds great, man.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.